Okay, so welcome back, students. We're going to be resuming at this point by adjusting our steel. In the previous segment, we ended by looking at how you create the reinforcement in the footing area. So we offset the cover, which was 50 on three sides. Then we offset 80 up to get us to the top of where the bend would be. And the 75 that we offset in, well, of course, we trim off those two lines above the 80, which was the boundary line. And then we stretch this line down to the midpoint of that steel horizontal line, draw a line at an angle anywhere between 50 60 degrees, which is a hook, because anything that is perpendicular is not a hook. So that's a bend. So we draw the line up at 144, which is 12 times the diameter of the steel. The steel was 12 and the constant is 12, so 144. That's what we got that. Then we use the fillet command with radius 20 and fillet the two lines on either side, and the same here. Then we put in the donut using DO. So DO is a shortcut for donut. And it asks for an inside diameter, which we didn't want, so we just changed that to 0. Then it asks for an outside diameter, and we wanted that to be 40. So we type 40, and then we click it in place. 1, 2, 3. So the next step is where we're picking up now. So we want to move not just the donut, not just the vertical line, not just the slant line, but the little arc under here. So it's very important that we select from right to left, that it will come in contact with all those four things that I mentioned a while ago. The slant line, the arc underneath, the vertical line, which all represent the steel, the wall bar, and also it went around the donut. So we're going to type M for move, enter. And I'm not going to crowd up the space. I'm going to pick somewhere out here in space and pull down. If your ortho is on, you'll get it perfect, but you can see it going down vertical. And as soon as it basically, blend in with the line below, because the steel will basically tie beside it like that. With the other one, we just click it. All right, so we moved it down. All two elements. This horizontal bar going along the trench and the wall bar that hooks underneath here. Okay, so that will basically conclude what down here should look like. Up top here now, I don't want the steel to be lower than the level of the wall, so I'm going to hot grip that. But let me turn on my ortho because I want those lines to remain vertical, so I want to keep it in the plane. So I'm going to hot grip that line and pull above. Let me give you a distance to work with, 600. Enter. So I just stretch the line 600 millimeter above the level of the wall. Okay. Then now we can turn on back our hatch layer, which we had temporarily turned off. So I'm going to turn on back the hatch layer. So I'm clicking on the light bulb to turn it back on. And once it is on, you'll notice the light bulb is no longer blue, but kind of yellowish, and all the different hatch patterns are back again. It would have been difficult to work inside of that space with those other objects, bombarding you. So when you hide it, it just gives you some freedom of space. All right, so what is left to be done on this thing now would be just the annotations in two forms, text and dimension. So I will start with the familiar thing. Well, both of them should be familiar, but I'll start with the text first. So the only text that I'm going to be putting in text layer is just the title. So just as we did down here, the title was in text layer. I'm going to put it back up here in text layer. But what we should not do is to copy this one and paste it up here. We have to remember that these are controlled by annotation scale. So what is going to happen is that this floor plan, this foundation plan, and the floor plan, both of them are going to print at a scale of 1 in 50. So when you scale this down on the sheet, it will be the size it's supposed to be, which is 6 millimeter. Remember that this was 300, So 300 divided by 6, 300 divided by 50 equals 6. Now, this drawing over here is not going to print 50 times smaller as the floor plan and the foundation plan. This drawing is going to print 20 times smaller. So we want it to be the same size when it is printed, meaning that it will be the same 6 millimeter. So in other words, we need to also have those textiles for it. Okay? So let's just check to see if we had created those styles. I doubt it is. So let me set the text layer current first to practice good form. So I'm setting my text layer current, and I'm going into ST for text style, which is style is a shortcut. We did not have T20 nor TS20. So T50 was for the title and TS20 was for the title scale. What we need now is a title for 1 in 20, which is T20, and a title scale for 1 in 20. So I'm about to create two different text styles. So let me set the T50 current so that it remembers one of the settings. So I'm going to double click on it and it's now set current. What it means when I click the new button, it will remember the font is Tahoma. We don't have to change it. But we need to not call it T50. We're calling it T. Turn on your caps lock this time. So it's T20. Then, okay, that's the name of the style. And over here, it's now added to the list. So here, it's Tahoma. It's already bold, which we need. The only difference is that we want the height to be 20 times bigger than it will be on paper. So on paper, we know it will be 6. So it's 6 times 20. So the height will be 120. And then we press apply. We need one now for the title scale. Now this one is going to be 4 millimeter on paper. So of course, it will be 4 times the 20. So the height is 80. So let's click new for the next one. And this one is TS20, title scale. And then click OK. Tahoma, yes, but not bold. So we're taking off the bold and put it back to regular. So you can see in your preview that it looks a little different. All right. Then now we're going to change the height to 80. And then press apply. So we have created those two text styles that we need. We need T20 and we need TS20. All right. Good. So let me close. I'm about now to bring in that title. So of course, we need to go to tool palette because since we can't copy the existing one because they'll print at different scales, then I need to bring in a brand new one. So T20. But before you do that, make sure you set your annotation scale to be 1 in 20. In other words, what the tool palette, and I would have told you before, does, it will make any object annotative object. Once the annotation scale is on, if you choose a scale 1 in 100, it's going to make your size. If you choose 1 in 100, it's going to make it 100 times bigger. Choose 20, it's 20 times bigger. 50 times bigger. So I need 1 in 20. All right. So let's go to the palette now. And we're looking for the architecture tab on the side here. Architectural tab. And then we're looking for, this time, we're looking for, sorry, not architectural, annotation. My mistake. So we're looking for the annotation tab on the side. If you're not seeing it on the list of things here, then what you can do is come down here at the bottom of the list where you see some layers. What I mean, like a little step, you're going up, and then we're looking for annotation. Then it puts it at the top. So on the annotation, not the architectural tab, we're going to come down on the metric samples, and we're looking for drawing title metric. Click on it and come to the screen and put it under the drawing about there. Click. Okay. So that basically is the title in, but it's not edited. So we need to go ahead and edit it right now. So let me zoom in on it. So what is view title? needs to be typical footing detail. And what is scale 1 in 1 need to be scale 1 in 20. And this one I'll just put A dash A, right, to represent the section where the footing is taken. So anywhere you double click, it takes you directly there. So if I double click on the view title, by double clicking on it, when I get the enhance attribute editor, which is this coming up, because I double clicked on this portion, it took me right to here, which is view name. But I don't want the view name to be called view title. I want it to be TYP, which means typical. All right, so FTG, which is footing detail. I don't want the title to be too long. Typical footing detail. But then no, I don't want that particular textile to be the one. So I need to go to options and choose from the list of textiles. And remember now, if you're using 2019 and 2021, 2020 and 2021, not 19, it is going to change your justification. So always observe your justification first. So mine is now bottom left. When I click here and choose T20, notice mine did move out of place. But if you see yours drop down here, 2020 or 2021, because they didn't fix it in 2021 either. Same problem. Right? So observe it. If it changed, you put it back to bottom left, which was the justification that was there. All right. Then we go back to attribute. All right. So we're back to attributes, and this time we're going to look on VP scale, which means viewport scale. Take out the 1 and put 50 for 1 in 50. And then we're going to come across here and assign our text style to be TS20. All right, good. Let's go back to attribute again. For the number symbol, I'm going to put A dash A. But if you notice, it's kind of bleeding going outside the circle. So when I go to text option now, I'm going to reduce the height. I'm not changing the, because I didn't create a text style with such small height. And I don't want that 80. I want that 100. So I'm going to take out that 120 and put 100. When I click somewhere else, you'll see that it updates. So we know that this, which is 100, will be 5 millimeter later on paper. All right. So basically, that concludes that portion, and we just need to click OK now, and then come back and adjust the line. So I'm going to select the line, don't double click, single click, hot grip it, pull it, and click it right there. Good. All right, so we have the title in. It's time now for the dimension. So that I will also put in dimension layer. So let me set the dimension layer correct. So I'm going to put in the dimension first, and then I will put in the multi-leader. The multi-leader are those things that have the arrows with the text after the leader. So let me put in the dimensions first, which we are familiar with. So let me zoom in right here. We're going to need the width of the footing, the height of the footing, and the distance from the ground level down to the footing, as well as the size of my hardcore, the size of the footing, not the footing, the floor slab, as well as the size of my wall projection on either side. So we're going to put in a few dimensions, and then we move on, okay? So let's proceed now with the dimension of the footing. So once I go to the annotate tab on the ribbon, dimension panel, we're clicking on linear as your tool. We're going to measure from end point to end point, pull out, and because I want it to be 12 millimeter on paper, it is going to be 12 times my plot scale. So 12 times 20 would be 240. So 240, enter. So that's how far away. When we were doing the floor plan over here, we wanted it to be 12, but it was 12 times 50. And that's why this was 600. Okay? So 600 in that case. But over on our footing detail, because we know that the footing is going to print 20 times smaller, we ought to make it 20 times bigger so that it will come down back to that size. All right. So I'll do another linear again. And this one, I'm going to pick here and pick here and pull out. Again, 240. Enter. Good. Now, those are the only ones that I'm going to be using the 240 with. The rest of them, I will just eyeball it and go with it. So let me press enter to repeat my command. And I'm going to pick down here, measuring the floor slab now. Not the slab, the hardcore. So I want to go up to the end of this line here. Good. I'm not measuring the horizontal distance, I'm measuring the vertical distance, which is also 300. So let me pull out, just eyeball it. If I type 240, it's going to basically clash. So I'm just going to pull it until it basically clear the break line and click. And then this one, I'm going to use the continue option, continue dimension, and click basically the very top line for the floor. All right, then I'm going to press escape. Good. And under here, linear again. So we're going to measure the projection on either side. So I pick here and pick there and go up. Just estimate that if you go 240, it will be probably clashing with your hatch pattern. So I'm going to click there, just eyeball that and make sure it's not touching. And then I'm going to just kind of line these up right here. Good. So that's the 150 on either side. The last dimension that I'm putting in now is to measure the distance from ground level down to the footing. So of course, this is going to be linear as well. So we're going to go endpoint where the ground is and endpoint where the footing is. And then this time around, I'm going to pull to the side. Notice if you pull up, it's going to give you horizontal distance between. I don't want horizontal distance. I want vertical. So I pull left. And what I'm going to do is to watch the line up here because I don't want it to touch the ground. So notice there should be a 4mm gap, which we said last week we wanted here. So I'm going to pull until I get that gap. So that means I want to pull it beyond that level. And as soon as I start seeing the line, I'm going to click. All right, so as long as this is not touching that, click. Now, if you notice, any length this line up here is the same length down here, which now creates a problem for us because it has this big gap between here, this huge gap. So we are going to have to fix that. Of course, that gap is there because when we were dimensioning the floor plan, we needed that gap so that when we did line 2, it didn't come down across here. So we were forcing this line to be 8mm. All right. And it creates a gap here. And that's what we need. Although we click down here, it's still all right. But guess what? It's now a problem for over here. So we are going to have to change it only for this dimension. So I'm not going into the dimension style and tell it no longer to force that line to be 8 because I still want it to be 8 generally. However, for this line in particular, which I'm going to select, I'm going to go into properties now and change the properties for this line only. So once I type PR, which is the shortcut for properties, or you could right click and come down and choose properties or control 1, several ways you can do it. So, right, so we're going to go into properties, PR, enter, and then it's going to launch the properties palette. And on the properties palette, we are going to change some settings. So if you notice, because this object is selected, it says rotated dimension, although it's not a rotated dimension, but puts that. All right. So we are going to scroll down. What you're seeing are the settings, just like when we were going to dimension style. So this particular settings falls under, that I need to adjust now, falls under lines and arrows. So if you notice down here, that feature that we had, let me just widen this so you can see it a little bit better. You remember that line that we decided to force to be 8 millimeters? That's from here to there. We wanted it to be 8. So we are saying, and that is why the problem is here, because from here to here, forced to be 8 millimeters. It cannot be greater or less. So what we're going to do is tell it, okay, we're not going to force this one to be 8. So above it, where it says extension line fix, which is on, we're going to click where the on is, and you get the option to turn it off. And notice, when it is on, the gap is there, and as soon as I come down to off, it extends the line. So it's no longer creating that gap, right? So only for that one. So as soon as I escape, it goes back to default, right? Which is no longer showing the dimension. And if I click on it again, it shows the properties of what I have been selected. All right, so let me escape and close the panel. So this is what we would call a dimension override, where you want this one to do something a little different from what the others were doing. Because what the others are basically obeying is what the settings, the dimension style was created to do. But I don't want it to do it for this line only. That is why I selected it, go into properties, and under your lines and arrows, we went down and look for that feature that says fix extension line length. We just turn it off. It was on. We don't want to fix that particular one to a distance. All right, so let me hit the save button, Control S, to save the changes up to that point. And the only thing that is left now to be done would be to call out these different items. So we want to say what this is, the wall, the floor. We want to say what the concrete is, the hard core, the earth. And we want to say what this is and the steel. So we need to use a feature now which is called multi-leader, which has an arrow, then a little landing, and then it follows with your content. So let's go back to the worksheet where we can see that drawing again. All right. So we're going to have to set the multi-leader. Let me go back to the drawing first. So these are the things that we're talking that we need. We need this, we need that, and we need that. But in order to get them, we need to set up what is called a multi-leader. This is the multi-leader. So we need to set up multi-leader style. And this one down here, and this one over here. Okay? That's all that is left for this drawing. So we're going to talk about how you set up the multi-leader style. Now this is another standard. So if you recall, the very first standard that I would have introduced to you was the layer standard. Okay? So we have the all layers. Then I introduced another standard, which was one for the text. So the name of the text style, the height and the font and everything, all of those are part of the standard. Then I introduced another standard, which was the dimension style. And I'm about to introduce the fourth standard now, which is the multi-leader style. So when you get an assignment to draw, and by the way, your assignment was uploaded to draw a floor plan and a foundation plan for the floor plan. And that basically I put a set a due date for the 3rd of May. I'm hoping that everybody by then will have some amount of access so we don't have to extend. But if God forbid that doesn't happen, then we will have to extend the time for those persons to do it whenever VTDI gives access so that you can get computer to work with. But if you have it, your computer, then we can go ahead and start working on the assignment. So I've given you a floor plan to reproduce, and then you're going to do the foundation plan for that floor plan. It's a simple 2-bedroom unit. I didn't want to do a complete, add another design, but in the interest of time, and because we know having issues with persons getting access, so we won't want to go too deep into that. All right, so we're gonna go with the multi-leader style. So what I've done is to give you again the settings for that. So to create the multi-leader style, step one, basically is telling you where to go on the ribbon, to go to the annotate tab, and on the annotate tab, you have the leaders panel, and at the bottom right hand corner of it, you have this little icon down arrow. If you notice, all of them had it. Dimension had it for dimension style. Text had it for text style. So you could click there for text style, click right here for the dimension style. And now I'm telling you, you can click right at that arrow here where the option is to launch the multi-leader style. If you don't want to click that, then your shortcut is MLS, multi-leader standard, multi-leader style, rather, not standard. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to be creating a brand new style called ML style. So let's do that. So I'm going back to AutoCAD now. All right, great. So I'm going to continue working the dimension style, right? I'll put the dimension layer, I'll put everything in the dimension layer. So I'll just keep on that one. All right, so if you go to your annotate tab on the ribbon, there is your leaders panel. And on your leaders panel, this is your icon here. So your shortcut is M for multi, L for leader, and S for style. MLS, enter. Then it is going to launch your multi-leader style manager. Of course, we're not going to be using the default one, which is called standard. We are going to create our own style. So we need to click the new button. And then we're going to call it, turn on your caps lock, ML style, which means multi-leader style, STYLE, multi-leader style. And then no, because we want it to be controlled by our annotation scale, and we want to just create one multi-leader style, and we'll be able to use it for any scale at all, which is the reason why we create annotative objects. So we are going to check this box to make it annotative. By virtue of checking this box, we know this feature down here takes over and decide how big it is. But what we need to do in creating the style is to make sure that the size we want it on paper is the style we created, the size. And then it will use this now to get them to full scale so that later on they can be scaled back down to what it will be on paper. So we put ML style for the name, or we check the box that says annotated. Click continue. So it will now take you to your next dialog box, which is connected to the previous one. You can't get out of this one behind here unless you get out of this one in front here. So we're going to be starting with the first tab on the dialog box called, getting my 10 minutes called. Now let's see if we can finish the style set up in the 10 minutes, and then we will do the dimension in the next segment. So we're going to go with the leader format. The default is straight. If you notice, this line looks straight and you have a landing. But you also have the option to use a spline where you get this curve looking thing. So we're going to go with the straight one. And of course, you have another one that says none. Well, I don't know why a person would want to do that, but it's there because you wouldn't want to create. It's best that you put it with it and you have the option to remove the leader. So we're going to go with straight. And when we don't want it, we'll just tell it to remove the leader and leave the content. If you want content alone, might as well just use the regular text feature, which is mtext. So we go with straight. And then no, we're going to have it putting it into the layer that we want it inserted in. So we're going to choose by layer for line type as well and for line weight. So color, line type, line weight, all of which will be by layer. Mr. Morris, you have a question? No. So let me, okay, good. All right, so we will proceed. So down here now, we're going to decide the size of the arrow. We're keeping the close field as the arrow symbol, but the size of it, we're going to make it 3 millimeters. Now, all of these things that I'm telling you, they are on the handout in terms of the size. It's a part of the standard, and I'm using 3 here as well. So just to show you where that comes from on the worksheet, that was the first page that we used to create the new style with the name, and we check the box. Afterwards, what I'm doing now is the leader format. So these settings here basically is what you will put for your leader format. Then the next slide that follows after that will tell you how many times you want to click before you get the object. So two here mean I just click 1 point for the point of the arrow and one for where the landing will start. And because this box that says automatically include the landing and set the distance, it will just automatically draw the landing 3 millimeters long, right? And then if you didn't check the box earlier to make it annotated, this would be your chance again. So let's go back to AutoCAD and then we'll come back and talk about the content. So we come back to here and set that. So we have 3 for that and 3 for this. Then we are going to go to leader structure where we maintain the 2. We're not going to check these boxes by virtue of doing that. What you're doing is forcing the first line, which is this part of the multi-leader, to always be a specific angle that you would specify over here, as well as the second one. We don't want it. So we leave them unchecked, and then we'll be able to just put that whatever angle. As a matter of fact, this one, because it's not checked, it will also still be 0 degree when it's the landing. We don't have to do the second one because we pick 2 points. If we said 3 points, then we'd have to determine the angle of the landing. But by the time you pick 1 for the point of the arrow and 1 for where the landing will be, it will automatically draw the landing. So we're going to change the size of the landing to be 3. All right, that's the size. Then now we're going to go over to content. Okay, so the content now has to do with the text that follows the landing. Notice it is using M text, which means multi-line text. But there are other options that you could have used. You could use a block, where it basically gives you the option to follow it with a slot. So you basically have a slot, or you could have a circle. You know, those objects when the dimension in them, and like most of the mechanical drawing do, not building drawing, where you have a car part that they're drawing, and instead of putting the name of the part, it will have a circle and number in the circle. So you have number 1, number 2, number 3, like a legend. And then now you have a table where it tells you what number 1 is in the table, what number 2 is. So you would use the arrowhead with the circle and the number. We are not going to do that. I'll just remind you where the feature is later on. So we are going to be using the option for mtext. We're not going to use block with any of these options. So we'll go back to mtext. And then now we're going to pick up our text style. So again, we had to use a text style called dim-t, which means dimension text. In our dimension style, we're using the same one. We're keeping the text horizontal, and we're going to put it in bi-layer, so the text will also take on the same property. And the size of that text will be 3 millimeters. That's the same height we had used when we were doing the dimension style. So I'm using that. And then now, the attachment down here now for the connection. Horizontal attachment, vertical attachment. For horizontal, I'm going to use these options. If it's on the left hand side or the right hand side, we want it to be attached the same way. Right now it says middle of top line. So if you have 3 rows of text, then the landing will basically line up with the top, middle of the top row. If you say middle of text and you have 3 rows of text, the landing basically lines up with the middle row, right? So we're just gonna go with middle of top line, whether it's on the left side or on the right side. So middle of top line, middle of top line. And then now, because we don't want the text to touch the landing, we're going to give it a 1 millimeter gap. Now remember, all of these distances that I'm putting in represent what it will be on paper. On screen, it will be times 20 because it will be full scale that we're drawing. All right. So I'm leaving this check that anywhere we pull it, it basically extends to the text, the landing. All right, good. So we're going to click OK. That basically would be the setting up of the style. So you notice that we have ML style, which is the new text style that was created, new multi-leader style that was created just now. And because it is annotative, it has the symbol that matches your annotation scale. So we know that this is in control of that. So I'm going to click close. All right, so let's start with one of them up here. All right, since we have about 3.5 minutes. So according to our worksheet, it says, all right, so that was the rest of the style that was just set up a while ago. We just did that. So now I'm going to be putting in these information. I'm going to start with this one up here that says this is a specification: 12 millimeter diameter mild steel bar as wall bar, which is this, at 400, which will be millimeters centers, in 136 concrete mix. Now this is a different mix concrete. This is not a reinforced concrete mix. Reinforced concrete mix, like I have in the footing down here, is 124. The ratio here is greater, which means that you have more sand and more gravel to the same amount of cement, which means that this mix up here is not as strong as the mix down here. This is a bearing capacity thing, so you need to have strength, strong enough concrete. So you need that strength in your concrete. But this one is poured inside the block pocket. The concrete block already is a masonry unit that is reinforced. Well, it's kind of masonry unit, it's smaller unit, and it's mixed with cement and sand and smaller, more coarse gravel than the more coarse sand than the regular sand to create those particles. So it's already a unit that is reinforced with that kind of mix. And then now we are going to put steel inside of the block pocket and pour concrete inside here. So this don't have to be a strong enough mix. So we normally work with 136 mix concrete inside the block pocket. All right. And then this one below it, which we will do afterwards, is the block wall. So notice it points to the block wall and it says 150 mm thick block wall. Then we have the tile, which is 300 by 300 ceramic floor tile laid on 25 millimeter. We'll talk about this before this. And we have the 150 slab for the floor, and the hardcore. It says hardcore spread, level, and compact in 150 millimeter layer. That means we don't just pour all the gravel inside here. So usually it is coarse marl, right? You put it in layers, small, and then you compact it so that it is dense. And you pour again and you compact it. So the greatest at is same is 150. It should not be more than 150. It can be smaller, and the smaller it is, the more you can compact it. So it should be a dense. If you see road failing, usually it's the same kind of thing because the base is not solid enough. So you create a base that is solid. So that's where we're going to stop here and then come back after the next segment where we're putting the multimeter because it's only a couple of seconds left. So let me stop the recording.